California, early 2010. A pale yellow light spread over the suburbs of Fallbrook. Wide streets, low trees, houses that were strangely similar. The afternoon was quiet, no children, just the sound of wind and the smell of hay. The house at 3,473 Avocado Vista Lane sat in the middle of rolling hills, white walls, red roof, dusty yard. The front door was ajar, and inside a meal uneaten. Sauce was on the dishes, a half-boiled egg on the table, and 2 chairs were pushed askew as if someone had just stood up. No sign of a struggle, no noisy, no one. The McStay family, Joseph, 40, his wife Summer, 43, and their 2 young children, Gianni and Joseph Jr., had disappeared. Joseph was a dynamic man who worked in aquarium design, a small businessman, gentle, hard-working. Summer stayed home, taught her children, loved gardening, kept meticulous records. They moved to Fallbrook to start a new life, away from the noise of the city, close to nature. Friends said they were happy. The last day they were seen was the 4th of February 2010. The family's white Toyota Isuzu was found 4 days later, parked near the Mexican border. Doors locked, keys in trunk, no blood. Border Patrol cameras recorded a family of 4 walking into Mexico the same day. Similar silhouettes, but faces unclear. Police weren't sure. The family seemed to have evaporated. Police entered the house on February 15. Everything was intact. Laptop open, coffee cups dried on the table, 2 dogs left behind, hungry but still alive. In the closet, the family's passports and papers were intact. No money, no luggage. Everything raised a single question. Why would a family of 4 leave home in the middle of a meal, without notice, without returning, and without anyone knowing where they went? The police reviewed all the cameras in the neighborhood. Nothing. Just the silhouette of a white car leaving the house at dusk. License plate obscured, heading south. Joseph's phone stopped working at 7:47 p.m. Then, silence. The news spread quickly. The press dubbed them the family that vanished. Theories ran wild. They ran away because of debt, were kidnapped, were murdered, or left voluntarily to start a new life in Mexico. None of them made sense. Joseph had just landed a big contract. His bank account was full. There was no reason to leave. All his friends said the same thing. He would never leave his 2 dogs behind. Time passed. No arrests, no bodies, no clues. Case closed. House sold. New buyer didn't stay long. They said something was wrong. Mojave Desert, November 2013. 4 years later, a motorcyclist stopped in the sand near Victorville, 100 miles from Fallbrook. He saw something sticking out of the ground, a small bone. Next to it was an old baby blanket and bits of sunburned plastic. Police arrived, dug. Under the hard soil, they found 4 sets of remains, 2 adults, 2 children, all wrapped in blankets, buried shallowly, unmarked. DNA analysis confirmed Joseph, Summer, Gianni, and Joseph Jr., the McStays, beat to death with blunt force trauma, skull fracture, death within a few days of disappearance. No signs of robbery, no sightings, no witnesses. The press returned. Old photos surfaced. Joseph smiling by the fish tank, Summer posing with her child in the garden. Now, they were just shadows in the forensic records. The police dug deeper, following transactions and business relationships, finding a name. Charles Chase Merritt. Merritt, Joseph's best friend and business partner. Together they designed and supplied products for major clients. It turned out that Merritt was the last person to call Joseph before the phone went dead. And a few days after the family's disappearance, Merritt wrote a check to withdraw money from Joseph's account, forging his signature. He had a history of theft, debt, and gambling. The police followed. Forensic results: Merritt's DNA was in Joseph's car. His computer had searched for the location of Victorville, where the remains were found. In 2014, Merritt was arrested. In 2019, he was sentenced to death. But what haunts people is not just the crime, but the period between 2010 and 2013. 4 years when the whole country wondered, where are they? No one heard a scream, no one saw a shadow, no one suspected the best friend who had dined with them. Police described the case in 2 words: perfect silence. No gunshots, no blood, no words, just a blank space on the map. Fallbrook is quiet today. The McStay's old house has been rented, repainted, and replanted. But afternoons there are exactly like 2010, dim light, light breeze, open windows, and the slow hum of a ceiling fan. Neighbors say they sometimes see a dim light in the living room, even when no one is home. Maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's just a memory. In the case file, the case is listed as solved. But many people still find it hard to believe, because everything is so normal. No warning, no reason. A family has dinner, then disappears. Psychologists call this silent crime, when evil does not scream but simply closes the door. The killer has no grudge, just money and opportunity on a warm night. A hammer, a brief decision, and 4 lives vanish between the thin walls of the house. No warning, no signs, just the absolute quiet of the suburbs, where everything seems safest. 3 years after the case, a journalist returned to write a documentary. He took pictures of the house, the stairs, the kitchen, and the dining table, where the unfinished meal still haunted him. Eggs, sauce, the crooked chairs. The scene prompted him to write, "We do not die of fear. We die because we believe that what is peaceful will always be peaceful." The McStay family's deaths do not leave the question who killed them, but why didn't we realize what was wrong? Because in modern life, people learn to ignore the gaps. A meal not served, a door unlocked, a friend who rarely appears. We consider it random, and sometimes, in that random space, silence swallows everything. At night, Fallbrook lights up again. The streets still glow a soft yellow, as if nothing had ever happened. The wind blows through the trees. No one remembers their names outside the archives. But if you pass by the old house on a windless night, you can hear the ceiling fan spinning rhythmically, and the window shaking gently, like a memory that has not yet faded. A family once lived there. They left the table, walked out, and never returned. No screams, no blood, only silence, the only thing that never disappears. Sydney, August 2011. The sky was clear, the afternoon sun shining through the fallen purple jacaranda trees. On a quiet street in Mosman, a wealthy suburb north of the city, modern houses were hidden behind white picket fences, neatly trimmed lawns, and sparkling windows. A place where everything was orderly, peaceful, and trustworthy. At about 2:30 p.m., an ambulance siren tore through the neighborhood. In house number 21, 8-year-old Madeline Pulver sat rigidly in a chair, her neck bound by a strange device. A large black box, cables, and a thick metal padlock. A note was placed in front of her, written in black ink, long and densely written. It demanded ransom, threatening to explode if she left the place. No one knew what the device was. No one dared touch it. New South Wales police cordoned off the entire neighborhood. The bomb squad, the bomb disposal team, was called in, along with a command vehicle, an ambulance, and a mine-detecting robot. They entered the silent house, each footstep echoing dryly. On the desk was an open laptop, a pen, and a few sheets of paper. No signs of a struggle. No broken door. The device around the girl's neck was a bolted, tape-covered box connected to plastic tubing and copper wire. On the surface was a small inscription: power, time, money. The experts looked at each other. No one knew if it was a real bomb or a fake. Outside, hundreds of people stood behind a police cordon. All of Sydney held its breath. The afternoon temperature gradually dropped. The yellow light stretched through the windows, falling on the white wall where the girl sat, not daring to move. The police called in experts from the Ministry of Defense. The bomb disposal team had to wear protective gear, moving inch by inch. Tape was cut. Screws were removed. Sweat beaded on their foreheads under their heavy masks. 10 hours passed. Night fell. Red and blue flashing lights reflected on the glass door. 10:45 p.m. All clear sounded over the radio. The device was safely removed. Inside, no explosives. A fake box. A fake bomb, but perfectly designed to make people believe it was real. The press called it the collar bomb hoax. The name Netflix bomb hoax was only used later when the case was made into a documentary. But at the time, it wasn't a movie. It was real horror, a perfect psychological crime. The police began an investigation. No fingerprints, no DNA, no cameras. The threatening letter was 3 pages long, printed from a computer. Standard paper, no features. The last line: follow the instructions precisely, or the consequences will be fatal. The sentence is cold, no spelling mistakes, no typos, as if written by someone who knows how to erase traces. Linguistic analysis shows that the author has a high academic background, uses Anglo-American writing structures, and has studied in a technical environment. But that is all. The investigation spread. More than 200 police officers participated. They followed every piece of data: who bought that type of wire, who printed that type of paper, every computer within 50 miles. No results. No one ever approached the girl's house. As time passed, the case gradually became a ghost in Australian criminal records. A bloodless crime, no solution, no motive. The police still did not stop. In the central office, a whiteboard was covered with notes, pictures, maps. In the center was a single sheet of paper, coldly typed, intellectual signature unknown. In 2012, more than a year later, U.S. police contacted an aircraft engineer named Paul Douglas Peters, 50, had just been arrested in Kentucky after being identified by security cameras at Sydney Airport. On the recording, a man wearing glasses, a blue shirt, and carrying a sports bag appeared near the Pulver family home on the day of the incident. Flight data showed that he left Australia 36 hours after the incident. The FBI found on Peter's laptop a draft of the threatening letter, along with files containing images of fake bomb designs and detailed notes on the process of carrying them out. Peters was a highly educated financial advisor who lived in an affluent area. He suffered from mental illness and debt. He had no connection to the girl, no reason. He chose his victims randomly. A structurally perfect crime, killing no one, but putting the entire city in fear. Peters was brought back to Sydney for trial in 2013. During the trial, he kept his head down and remained silent. His defense attorney said he was mentally unstable. The prosecutor said, "This crime does not require blood. It is created by the mind." The court sentenced him to 13 years in prison, but the case was not over. After the verdict, investigators continued to study how he carried out the crime, not to understand him as a person, but to understand the accuracy of his fear. Paul Peters did not create a terrorist attack. He created a psychological model of control, an empty box, sealed with iron, plastic, and a threat. Convinced 200 police officers that it was real, stopped the nation's breath. It was called the perfect illusion of death, a crime that did not kill, but forced hundreds to live as if they were facing death. In the Sydney police office, after the case was closed, the girl's picture was hung, not as a victim, but as a witness to the human mind being bent. Investigators described the feeling of entering the house: thick air, white light, the smell of burning plastic. A perfect room, a perfect trap, a man who believed he was the creator of perfect fear. 10 years later, in 2021, Netflix released a documentary about the case, What Lies Below, the collar bomb case. Viewers called it a psychological bomb, but for the police who were there, it wasn't a movie. They still remember the heaviness of the hazmat suit, the stifling heat, the pounding of their hearts as they cut the first wire. They didn't know if it was real or fake, and in that moment, the fear was real. The case went down in Australian history not for its brutality, but for the sheer control of fear. A man, an empty box, and a city paralyzed. No blood, no screams, just flashing lights on white walls and the silence of a mind game gone too far. And perhaps that's the true nature of the 21st century, where you don't have to kill to cause death, just make people believe it's coming. London, late 2008. The city is shrouded in a thin layer of winter mist. In the sky, the lights of financial buildings are still on all night. Canary Wharf, Docklands, tall, cold glass blocks, shining white light on the black Thames. The world has just emerged from the global financial crisis. Millions of people have lost their jobs. Hundreds of banks have collapsed. But here, in the heart of London, there are still offices where money has never stopped flowing. One of those offices belongs to Barrington Capital, a small but wealthy private investment firm, run by one man, Alan Whitby, 38, a hedge fund manager, sharp suit, impeccable resume, Cambridge educated, former Deutsche banker. No one knows much about him, only that he always has the right answer for every number. His records are clean. The company's profits are stable. Investors have absolute confidence. And for 4 years, Alan Whitby lived as a silent financial legend, until one small detail brought his entire empire crashing down. The 14th of October 2008, markets were reeling after Lehman Brothers. Many companies were illiquid. Barrington Capital was still reporting a 6% profit. Whitby's reports were sent out. The electronic signatures were valid. The figures were smooth. But at one of the custodian banks, Crown Holdings, a young auditor noticed something strange. The transaction codes in the reports did not match the SWIFT payment system. A small error, just a few numbers. He emailed back. No one answered. 2 days later, the automated email said, "Address does not exist." The Financial Police, Serious Fraud Office, SFO, began a preliminary investigation. Barrington's accounts had 23 customers, totaling more than £200 million. Money was coming in, interest was being paid out, but no real transactions were recorded. The money was circulating internally through 17 fake accounts, opened in 5 different countries. A perfect structure, as if programmed to avoid any trace. The lead investigator, Inspector Harris, described the case as a bank that existed only in language. There was no real office, just a rented 20th floor of a building. No staff, just files signed with the same signature. And the only person who appeared real, Alan Whitby, seemed to be a figment of his own imagination. When the police arrived at his Kensington home, the apartment was silent, the door unlocked. Inside, everything was perfect. Clothes hung straight, coffee mugs washed, laptop open, screen showing a half-written email, the last line ending with, "Dear investors." No one. No suitcase. No passport. No trace of anyone leaving the UK. On the table, a bank card cut in half, and a single USB. Inside the USB was a string of encrypted data, more than 200 Excel files. All had the same structure: date, transaction code, amount, digital signature. But when decrypted, the investigator realized it was not a transaction table. Each hidden number in it was a line of text, encrypted using the Fibonacci algorithm. Put together, the lines became a long paragraph. Not a financial report, but a diary. Money is not real. Trust is the ultimate commodity. I didn't steal. I just proved that no one sees what they want to believe. Whitby created a perfect fake bank, not to profit, but to test the system. He built Barrington Capital as a psychological model of economic trust. People invested, not because of evidence, but because of the belief in the existence of the system. For 4 years, no one suspected, because of the steady profits, beautiful data, and luxurious brand. But in reality, no real money was invested. All the money just moved through layers of assumptions, then returned to the owner, like a self-financed play with illusions. Police searched all over Europe. There was no trace of a man named Alan Whitby in any system. No passport, no birth certificate, no driving license, no Cambridge records. That name never existed. Even the photo in the profile was a composite face of many different people. The investigation team began to panic. If there was no real Whitby, who wrote the emails? Who sent the profits to the customers? It all came from the same IP, located on a server in Luxembourg, operated by an automated trading bot. Whitby, or whoever it was, created an AI bank back in 2004, before the term was popular. It learned to respond to emails, write contracts, sign them electronically, and create virtual transaction chains. Barrington Capital was the world's first bank without humans. In 2010, when the SFO traced the last server, they found a final piece of code in the system, labeled Exit 1. The last line: if value equals 0, then delete self. When run, all of Whitby's data disappeared in 3 seconds. Hundreds of accounts closed at once. Total loss, £203 million. Impossible to recover. 2 years later, in 2012, a small bank in Geneva reported a strange transaction. £1,000 sent to an account in the name of A. Whitby, from an IP address in London. The police arrived. It was just an old internet cafe, closed, with a dusty computer in the corner. The screen was still open, displaying a single line. The system was the crime. The case file ended with no culprit, no arrests, no clear understanding of what had happened. The investigators concluded, the biggest financial fraud in Britain, but no real people behind it. The financial world called it the lying banker case. Years later, business schools used it as an example of market illusion, when an entire system is run on trust rather than real money. Occasionally, former investigators said they still received strange emails, sent from random addresses, with only an attachment called Report 4040 cells. There was no data inside, just the first sentence of an old diary entry. Money is not real. Trust is the ultimate commodity. No one knew where it came from, or whether Alan Whitby ever really existed. But in London financial circles, whenever the markets were in turmoil, the name was repeated like a mantra. Whitby, the man who proved that lies can be audited. In Canary Wharf, the old Barrington building had changed hands. A new sign hung up, and the lights were on all night. The numbers were moving, the emails were being sent, the trades were being made. It all seemed so real that no one wondered how much of it was real and how much was just programmed belief.